with you one of my favorite spots of the city skyline. We're here at Evergreen Brickworks, and I'm here with Flatt. She's a senior manager with Evergreen. Thanks for joining me today.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
We're talking about Laneway Housing. Such a big question for a lot of Torontonians. This concept that we could actually put houses in our laneways. We have 300 kilometers of laneways that, for the most part, are being unused. They're just there for travel. Talk to me a little bit about what Evergreen is doing with Lanescape to introduce more sustainable Laneway Suites to the city of Toronto.
Yeah, so it's a really unique collaboration. We're working with Lanescape, who are a bunch of experts, so developer, planner, architect, to understand the nuances of how we could actually build and create Laneway Suites. But we also worked really closely with two councillors from the city of Toronto, Anna Bailao and Mary Margaret McMahon. And so together as a group, we've been looking at strategies for how we can move this forward, how we can make it more acceptable and possible for the city of Toronto.
People are always talking about Laneway Housing, but it's really not prevalent here in Toronto. Why not?
Well, because it's technically very difficult to do. We have a bylaw in Toronto that says no house behind a house. And so the examples of laneway houses that we have seen are examples where architects or people who are experienced or knowledgeable have been able to kind of work the system and figure out a solution. But it's not easy to do. It's not a very streamlined process.
If I'm looking at a house and it's got a lot and then it's got, a laneway behind it in a garage, where's this Laneway Suite happening?
Yeah, so Laneway Suite is sort of a nice way of, or a more modest understanding of what a laneway house traditionally was. So when we talked about laneway housing, we thought of this big house at the back of the lot. That's really difficult to do. It can be really challenging to maintain the character of the neighborhood if you have a huge, big house at the back of the lot. And one of the biggest issues that we had in Toronto was around severance and servicing. So if we made it a house, that would fundamentally mean that you would cut the land. So the Laneway Suite really is the idea of taking a basement apartment and putting it on top of the land.
Which is so much better because most people want light instead of a basement anyway, right?
Exactly. So it also means that these are modest in size. So we're really looking at nothing over 1,000 square feet. And the servicing for them would come off of the main road or from the main house, and it would stay under the ownership of the main house owner. So it's not that we're severing the land and selling it off, but it's an additional rental unit or additional space that the homeowner can use as they please.
So how is this initiative sort of unfolding with the Toronto government right now?
What was really great is that the city planning said, okay, under the context of a Laneway Suite, we opened this conversation and we will look at strategies to address this. But they didn't really have the capacity when we had started our work. So together with us and Lanescape and the councillors, we prepared a series of consultations to understand from the public what they thought about Laneway Suites. Were they open to it? Were they accepting of it? What were they concerned about? And using those insights, we produced a consultation report, which basically said that Torontonians are excited about the potential of Laneway Suites.
Yeah.
It also laid out a whole series of strategies and processes in order to streamline the process, looked at other jurisdictions, and really helped to kind of grease the wheels and provide some important content and context for the government, for the city of Toronto as they move forward in their own process. And so what was exciting was that when we went to council in June of 2017, they said, yes, this is great, we're going to explore this, and they asked city staff to come back with a response to our report in the first quarter of 2018.
Ooh, so very soon, right?
Very soon. I think that more realistically it might be spring of 2018, but either way.
Okay.
We are expecting a response that basically says how the city will implement and move ahead with Laneway Suites.
Fabulous. Now, if the red tape finally gets cut, how does this work? Is it inexpensive to do this kind of project? Let's just say I'm a homeowner and I'm like, yay, I can build another suite. Do you have any idea what kind of cost that might actually be?
So the vision that we put forward and that we're hoping the city will also adopt is the idea of, right now, if you want to build a basement apartment, there's a bunch of rules and regulations that you have to follow. You submit an application, you have an inspection, all that kind of stuff, and if it works and it's great and you can have your basement apartment. The idea with the Laneway Suite is the same. You follow a bunch of regulations. If you meet them, you can have a Laneway Suite. Now the cost is certainly a challenge. Looking at other jurisdictions in Vancouver, with some of the people that we've spoken to, it can cost $300,000 to build a Laneway Suite.
Okay.
Right, and we're just talking about 850, 1,000 square feet at the back of your lot. It's a lot of money for some people. So it's not exactly a quick, easy, simple, cheap solution.
No, maybe not cheap, but it is a great potential if you have aging parents, and you don't want to put them in a condo or something like that. it would be amazing just to have the opportunity to have it there, right?
And the way that other jurisdictions are using it. So in Vancouver, they're finding a lot of intergenerational living with the Laneway Suite. So your child who now is having a small family or going off to school and wants their independence, or your parents or your grandparents who need a place to live close by. And so it's a really great way to think about that new form of living, to be able to support and live with your family members.
Cool, awesome. And then, you know, here we are in 2018. Do you have any idea how long this process could take before maybe we start to see this in Toronto?
I mean, the city, when we last met with them, they were pretty ambitious, and they said that it might be able to happen by the end of this year, maybe even earlier. So that's pretty exciting in terms of the change. We know that we are in a bit of a housing crisis, as many people have talked about it, or a challenge with our housing stock and the price of housing. So we see this as but one of the many tools and solutions we need to be considering when we think about the future of housing stock in our city.
Joe, thank you so much for joining me today. Everybody, Joe Flatt from Evergreen. Today we're here at Evergreen Brickworks. Great space to be in the winter or in the fall or in the summer. Great Toronto hideaway. Come visit. And if you have more questions about Laneway Housing and want to talk to Joe directly, evergreen.ca. Thanks so much.